welcome to Thrilling Thursday here at excuse me, at Ariel's Corner. This is Ariel Gatoga, and we are streaming live on YouTube. Moderating today are the lovely Minerva and the lovely I Am Her Eminence. Thank you so much, moderators, and thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. Check out our website at arielscorner.com so that you can access all of our courses and our booklets and all kinds of cool stuff over there. It's all free. Check it out, arielscorner.com. Take special note of the links to our social media on our header and, on the headers and footers of all those pages. The Discord server and the private Facebook group are two special links that you may want to check out because that enables you to be more actively part of our community, and we'd love to have you be involved with us. We have a chat thread going on this stream, so please chat amongst yourselves, and if you happen to have any questions for me personally, you can put them right in the chat thread and we will get to them before the end of the stream. I don't have a premiere today, but we will have one tomorrow. I'm hoping to get another short up today. I've been putting up shorts on the days that I don't have time to get a full-length video. All right, and we have a podcast hub, and you can find that by going to arielspodcasts.com, arielspodcasts.com. And we also have a shop where we have exclusive Ariel's Corner merchandise, and that's at arielscornershop.com, arielscornershop.com. Was there anything else that I forgot? Oh yeah, if you want to donate, you can do that by going to paypal.me/arielgatoga, paypal.me/arielgatoga. Another way to donate is by using a super sticker, super chat, or super thanks right here on YouTube or on our website at arielscorner.com. In the footer of those pages, you'll find a little donate button, and that'll let you donate with everything else, like a credit card, debit card, Apple Pay, all that kind of stuff. So we do appreciate your support, and we appreciate you for being here today. If you are in a place where it is safe and appropriate, please close your eyes and begin to take some nice, long, slow, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more peace and light entering your body and mind. And with each exhale, let go of everything in your body. Let go of all the tension in your body, along with anything in your mind that you do not want. Inhaling peace, exhaling as you let go. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, and it lights us and the grove with a sacred golden light. This is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, which burns away everything unlike itself, leaving us safe and serene. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves to be a mother and father, a goddess and God. We also call upon our angels, our guides, and or our teachers. We ask that they guide us as we walk upon the way, helping us to become happier, more peaceful, wiser, and more loving people. Blessed be. Excuse me, I'm having a little allergy issue today, so I apologize if I start sneezing. There's a lot of talk these days about conspiracies. That's a big word. It's a big buzzword, conspiracy. And conspiracies are real. You know, you can read up on them. There's been conspiracies since the beginning of time. But the one conspiracy that most people don't ever even consider or think about or know about, let alone investigate, is the conspiracy of the ego, the conspiracy of separation. There is a general conspiracy within the group mind, or the mind of the Holy Child of the Infinite, that we are separate. This thought form that we are separate, and that we are taken from our good, that there is something defective about us, and that we are in want. And because of the way that the mind works, and especially the mind, how it operates in three-dimensional reality, when we live in three dimensions, we have the ability to experience something through linear time. So we can experience form and function within linear time. There's a past, there's a present, and there's a future. And the screen of space onto which is projected the images, the three-dimensional images that we experience here as we walk through this linear time, as we move through this linear time, are provided by the mind. So the conspiracy is the idea that we don't know, that we are kept in ignorance, the power of our minds to project onto the screen of space our experience. And since we are operating under false premises about our separated state, we are projecting onto the screen of space false images and experiencing a world of suffering. And we're trapped, imprisoned in our own minds based on this conspiracy, the conspiracy of our own ego minds. So we all conspired in this and then had a generalized amnesia, fell asleep to it. And the joke of it all, the big cosmic joke, is if we were to awaken to who we really are and take back the control of our minds, the illusion would disappear like fog in the sunlight, like mist in the sunlight. It would completely vanish. And we would realize it never really existed to begin with because it was nothing but a phantasm. Now, the idea of that is interesting, but the reality of it when a person does awaken is horrifying. We go through what many people have termed the dark night of the soul. Because as much as we want to escape the suffering of this world, we are also in love with what we made. We are in love with our own creations. We're in love with our pain. We're in love with our fear. We're in love with all of it because we made it, and that's natural. It's natural to love the thing that you created. And that's part of how the whole conspiracy operates, is that we fall in love with the very things that we claim to want to escape, and therefore we keep them alive because it's a lot easier to stay within the status quo than it is to actually change, because we don't want to go through that dark night of the soul. We don't want to go through that fear to the other side of it. That's too agonizing for us, or at least that's what our minds tell us. When in reality, if we go through that fear, like I said before, we realize it was nothing but clouds. It wasn't a solid wall of fear at all. It was nothing but mist. It didn't really exist. There was nothing to fear to begin with. So we're constantly confronted with the choice of, do we want to awaken, or would we prefer to stay asleep? And most of us would prefer to stay asleep, even though we don't love it, even though we are miserable, even though we are afraid, even though we are in pain, even though we are sick and tired of the wheel of life and death, all of the illusions we don't like, but we choose to stay involved in the illusions because it's easier than going through the fear of change, going through the fear of what will life be like outside of this closed system. And most of us don't even cognize that. Most of us aren't even aware that we have that choice. It's only the enlightened ones among us that are even going through that kind of a choice. Most people are ignorant to the power that they possess. They are ignorant to the state of affairs. They are ignorant to the fact that the world that they experience is not real, is a product of their own projections, is a product of a vast conspiracy. And many of the conspiracy theories and things like that that we have are simply fabrications of our own ego mind to keep us busy so that we don't bother to investigate our own experience here. We don't worry about the existential crises that we all go through because we're so preoccupied with nonsense, preoccupied with everything that doesn't matter, even though we have been convinced and we convince ourselves that these things are the most important things. It's so much more important to investigate and worry about and try to fix things in the illusory world that seem to be always at a level of crisis. But there's never been a time on earth where we haven't been at a level of crisis. No matter wherever you cut a cross-section of time and you go into it, whether it be in the prehistoric eras or the more recent eras, humanity is always at the precipice of self-destruction. Humanity is always going through some sort of major existential crisis that is a distraction so that we don't look at the true crisis, the true conspiracy, which is within our own minds. And we will have psychologists rise up to ridicule people who think on a more metaphysical level, and that's not an accident either. That's part of this whole conspiracy. The idea that we ridicule any notion that we may have another choice than the ones that we think we have, that there may be another dimension out of which this dimension is receiving its substance. That those ideas are considered to be fantasy or magical thinking or denial. And because the status quo would much rather us stay stuck, even though they may believe quite earnestly that they are serving the greater good. So my recommendation to you, if you truly desire to be free from the chains and shackles of the imprisonment of your own ego mind, that you consider the idea that everything that you see in your life is a product of projection. Everything that you encounter in your life is a product of projection. And you see, this is really good news, especially for people who do things like cast spells and work magic. This is really good news to recognize this, that you're already a master spellcaster. You're already masterful at casting spells, and your entire life is the product of that. So you already have the ability to create a reality because you're doing it already. Now the trick for you, now the assignment that you must decide to accept for yourself is to change and be aware of the thought forms which you are projecting onto the screen of space, and do it deliberately. And when your life starts to change, don't be surprised if on some level or another, people around you point the finger at you and call you a witch. Not necessarily in those words, but recognize that people don't love it when anyone among us escapes the conspiracy, escapes the thought forms of the ego mind, of the demiurgic mind, the demiurgic mind in favor of freedom. They don't like that because remember that the ego mind is a method by which we embrace status quo and stasis. And anything that threatens or seems to threaten status quo is immediately attacked and tried to be destroyed. Which is one of the reasons why in the craft we recommend secrecy when you're working magic. Because it's an automatic response to the ego minds around you to attack you if they see you doing well, if they see you escaping, if they see you not bothered by the world. Once you recognize your power over the world, you're no longer bothered by it. You're no longer afraid of it because you know it's not real and you know that you have control, you have power. And anyone that gets us even a hint that you're experiencing something like that, unless they also are on the path of escape and enlightenment and freedom and liberation, they are programmed to attack you for that. So it's always a good idea to stay subtle about what you're doing if you don't want yet another problem. Because what you are doing, if you create a lot of resentment from those around you, is you are reinforcing on two levels. You're reinforcing the old thought system, both in their minds, and the group mind, but also in your own mind, because you haven't really ascended it if you are still having to fight and protect yourself. You see? So it's much easier and more effective if you keep your involvement in these sorts of things silent. It gives you a lot more power. But one of the things that you can do is the one thing that most people are the most prone to attack when I even recommend it or suggest it. It will open me up to a lot of attack when I suggest what I'm about to tell you. And it happens all the time. I recommend this, I recommend what I'm going to say, and I get email after email, comment after comment of people absolutely furious that I would suggest such a thing. And it's this, that you look at your world and you take 100% responsibility for each and everything you see. Take responsibility for the things that you see on your television screen in the news. You take responsibility for everything. What somebody is doing to you that seems out of your control. Anytime you're being victimized on any level, whatever it is, the good, the bad, and the indifferent. If you, as an exercise, as a magical exercise, develop the mindset of, I am responsible for projecting these images onto the screen of space. These are mine. These are my images, mine alone. And therefore, I have the power to change these images. I have the power to change the images that I am projecting onto the screen of space, but not until I'm willing to take responsibility for them, myself. And the first thing that people do, rather than saying, oh, thank goodness, that's so liberating, is that's horrible. I am not responsible. I was a victim. I didn't create the disease that I'm experiencing. I didn't create my cancer. I didn't create being raped. I didn't create my husband cheating on me. And whether you did or you didn't in the objective universe is inconsequential. I'm talking about using that as a mindset, using it as a mindset, as a construct, a mental construct, to build a bridge out of the illusion and into power. Maybe you didn't have anything to do with that. Maybe you were completely victimized. But what happened in the past is not what we're talking about. We're talking about what's on the screen of space now. So even if you didn't have anything to do in the past with being raped, you do have everything to do with what you're doing with it now. And are you recreating vulnerability? Based on that, are you projecting more possible attack in the future based on what happened? Or are you taking charge of the thought forms and only projecting onto the screen of space safety? Don't miss out on your power because you want to blame the images on the screen of space. When we try to blame the images that we have projected onto the screen of space for our experience, it's not that we're wrong, because objectively, yes, of course, I was raped when I was 15. I was raped at gunpoint. Objectively, I had nothing to do with that. I didn't ask to be raped. I didn't ask that person to do that, to terrorize me for 2 hours. I didn't ask to think I was going to die. I didn't ask for all the pain, physical pain, emotional pain, and all of the therapy I had to go through after that. I didn't ask for that. But I do take responsibility for it. I do take responsibility for it now. To say that I created it then is pointless because I'm not living then. I'm living now. I'm living now. So unless I want to create a pattern of being victimized over and over again, I need to change that thought form for myself now and take responsibility for what I'm experiencing right now, no matter what it is. And if I can look at what's happening and say, you're just an image. You're just an image that I'm projecting. That gives me so much more power. But if I say, oh, I have nothing to do with this and I can't change anything and I just have to duck and cover, I just have to run, I have to hide, or I have to fight. So I recommend that you don't get swallowed up by the conspiracy. I recommend that you stand up to it in your own mind and look at every image on the screen of space in your life right now and just remind yourself, I'm taking responsibility for that. You're not real. You are an image. You're an image in my mind that I am experiencing through my three-dimensional body in three-dimensional space, moving through it in three-dimensional time. But if you were to think about time as it exists on the next dimension after this one, from, let's say you were pulling back from your body, pulling back from your life, and you were looking at things maybe from outer space, you'd see that what people might call the fourth dimension, time still exists, but it exists simultaneously. And there is no past, present, and future. There's only oneness. And since that's true, from the perspective of the third dimension where we live here, there's an infinite possibility in regards to whatever future we want. But we have to choose that, and we can't choose that while we are under the hypnotic spell of, this is what my past is, this is what my future is, this is the world the way it is, and I can't change it. I'm stuck here. once you recognize that you're not stuck here and that the things around you aren't real, not at least on a universal level, they're not real, then you can understand that at any point of time in the third dimension, you can align yourself with whatever future you want. And what happens when you start doing that is the things in the third dimension rapidly change to accommodate the new thought, to accommodate the new thought form that's being projected. When you understand what we're doing and don't dig your heels in and say, no, and recognize that, yeah, I'm responsible for the experiences that I'm having based on what I'm projecting. But that's good news, because then I can change my thought. I'm having maybe an argument with a family member. I could change the thought and say, I'm just projecting onto them. I'm projecting onto them my idea of them. So I don't want to project onto them that idea of them. I want to project a different idea onto them. I want to experience them as someone that I love and that I get along with and that I'm in harmony with. And so then my ego no longer is capable of gathering evidence to support my old idea that I was projecting onto this person. And it's more than just I start to get along with them better in my mind. Their behavior starts to change because I'm seeing them as a different person. I've gone out of the third dimension, at least temporarily, and chosen a different aspect of who they can be for me, recognizing that it's never them that I was interacting with to begin with. It was my projection about them that I was interacting with. And that can be for anybody. But we have to, in order to change our relationships with other people, as well as our relationships with things like money and health and world politics and all of that, we have to recognize that before we can do that, we are only dealing with our own projections. And until we are willing to take responsibility for the fact that I only know how to interact with this thing, whatever it is, based on what I'm projecting onto it, I can stop and make a new choice and say, I don't want this. I want something else. And then when I start projecting that something else onto the screen of space, it changes. The money changes, the person changes, the relationship changes, the politics change, everything changes. How you interact with people change, how you interact with your body changes. You get spontaneous healings, you find a new doctor. All kinds of stuff happens. That's why we call it magic. It's just amazing what can happen when you change your mind. But nobody wants to take the first step and realize they've been had by their own ego, just like we all have. They've been had. And they don't want to go through what they perceive to be the dark night of the soul to bust open this reality that they believe they're trapped in and they believe they have no choice in, because they do not want to take responsibility for the fact that the world that they're experiencing is based on what they are throwing at the screen of space. And so you can spend lifetime after lifetime after lifetime being right about it. Like, I have no choice. I am a victim here. And the world will just keep saying, yes, you're right. You're right. But if you decide that you want to move out of that limited prison that you have been holding yourself in, and we've all been supporting each other holding ourselves in this prison, in these prisons, these individual prisons and this collective prison. Once you decide I don't want to do that, you realize that there aren't bars. There aren't prison bars. They're not solid. It's actually quite easy once you recognize that I can change my idea about it, but I have to be vigilant. I can't just do it once. I have to change my mind and then keep it changed. I have to sustain that change. And there are many ways to do that. And we teach you all kinds of tools and techniques about how to build thought forms and how to work with your deep mind, etc. But the idea is that until any of that can be of any use to any of us, before any of that can be of any use to you or any of us, that we have to first take responsibility for the fact that we are the ones projecting, that we are the ones that are responsible for our experience here. We're responsible for our relationships and our health and our family life, all of it. Even the stuff that we were victimized, we're still responsible. You don't have to be. You can still stay stuck. You don't have to accept responsibility. You don't have to change the thoughts. You don't have to do that. You can stay stuck, but know that you're not going to get a lot of support in changing your thoughts because most people want to stay stuck. Most people want to be victimized by this world and therefore have all the evidence to support their case that they're victimized, that they've always been victimized and they always will be victimized. You know, it's a closed system. That's the whole idea of staying stuck in the prison of the ego. It's a closed system. But you can escape it if you want to, and escape is easy as soon as you realize that none of that's really happening. The only thing that's really happening is you projecting habitually onto the screen of space images that you've been trained to project ever since you were little. And it's no mistake that that happened. That's how this conspiracy works. We're trained right away. If there's a criminal enterprise in the world, a conspiratorial criminal enterprise, a big deal, the smartest way to recruit people into your criminal enterprise is to get them to do something illegal so that you've got something on them, so that they're not going to turn on you. Because if they turn on you, they're facing possible punishment themselves. So that's how many of those criminal conspiracies and enterprises stay going, is the way that they recruit people is by making sure that those people are guilty of something right away. And it's a similar kind of thing as to what we do. We don't realize that we are indoctrinating our children into the same criminal conspiracy that we were indoctrinated into because it's so habitual, we don't ever think of it that way. So when we raise our children, we raise them to believe that they are as vulnerable and easily victimized as we believe we are. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just how it was set up. And it's real pernicious. It's pernicious. It's awful. But that's how the entire human race has been stuck for so long since the fall. It's just how it works. But the decision to wake up is seen as something that's so difficult, so challenging, and so hard, which is why people don't want to do it. They don't even want to consider the possibility of it. But in fact, if you just decide, I'm going to go through that dark night of the soul, I'm going to go through that fear onto the other side, you realize it's no big deal. It's like when I didn't want to bungee jump. No, it wasn't bungee jumping. What was it? What's that thing where you go through the air on the line? I can't remember what that was called. Well, that or any of them. Like anytime I've had to, like maybe on a roller coaster, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But by the time I got to the end of it, it was actually kind of fun and it was no big deal. It was really not as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. The same is true for going through and standing up to the ego and getting onto the other side of the illusion. It's really not that big of a deal. That dark night of the soul wasn't that dark. It wasn't that much of a night. in retrospect. It was the anticipation of it that was so scary. So ziplining, that's what it was. We all were going to go ziplining. I think it was in Maui or something like that, or someplace in Hawaii. We were all going to go ziplining, and it sounded fun on paper. And then I got up there and I'm like, I don't want to do this. But there was really no way back. And I didn't want to be, that big of a problem. So I just, did it. And I got to the end of it and I'm like, well, it was fun. But more importantly than that, it wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. And the same is true for anything in consciousness. When you stand up to the ego, when you stand up to the illusions, when you take responsibility for the thought forms that you're interacting with, you realize that wasn't so hard. That was actually quite easy. And now look at me. I've got all of this power, and I can choose whatever I want to experience, because now I'm an adept. As an adept, I get to choose what kind of a relationship I'm having with this person. I get to choose what kind of relationship I'm having with money, with food, with my body, with substances, whatever it is. I get to choose. It's no longer happening to me. So it's actually quite easy to keep this stuff under wraps so that you aren't subject to the attack that's inevitable from other egos, because nobody ever knows what you're doing but you. And what happens, at least for me, what happens is when I start to have more and more success in an area, it happens so organically that it doesn't create too much of a stir, and I can still go about my business without creating too much of a ruckus. It's not so much that I change the images on the screen of space and $1 billion falls out of the sky. It's that I start having a healthier relationship with money and my prosperity increases. I start having a better relationship with people that were a problem, and my friendships become more solid. I start having a better relationship with my body, and a lot of those health conditions clear up spontaneously. But it can be easily viewed as, oh, that would have happened anyway, from the ego mind or from any onlooker. Oh, all that was coincidence. But I know better, and when it happens to you, you know better that this was a miracle. This was magic in operation. This was a mystical experience from me taking responsibility of changing the thought forms that are being projected onto the screen of space. And I couldn't have done that had I not had the courage to stand up to the old ones and said, I am your maker, and I can unmake you. I'm no longer in love with my creation here, because I recognize that this is not serving me, and that this thought form that I've been projecting is based on a lot of erroneous information that I was taught probably when I was 4, 5, 6, or 7 years old, and never bothered to question. And I'm not doing that anymore. Taking responsibility for each and every interaction, each and every manifestation, each and every relationship, every little thing I am choosing to take responsibility for. And when we do that, what also seems to happen is we start getting a easier guidance about how to interact with the world, because we have chosen to. Instead of I'm just victimized by this world and I have nothing to do with it, when I realize, oh, this is really crystallized thought that I've been thinking, that I've been projecting for all these years, I'm going to withdraw that thought and I'm going to project a new thought onto the screen of space. What that does is it opens me up to the guidance that's always been there for me on how to do that and how to choose those thoughts in the best way possible. But it's like having a navigation system in your car and never even knowing it's there or never even turning it on. You can't turn it on until you turn the vehicle on. And you can't turn the vehicle on unless you know that you have a vehicle. A lot of us have been sitting in a parked car having stuff happen to us, wondering why we can't go anywhere. Once you recognize, oh, I see, I can turn this on. I can execute this program. I can turn on the ignition. And not only that, but I've got state-of-the-art navigation system so I can get to anywhere I want to go. And that's a beautiful thing once we recognize that we have the power to take over our minds, to take over our experiences in three-dimensional reality, and that each and every encounter with the world offers us another opportunity to question, what's the thought? What am I projecting here? Not what's happening to me, but what am I projecting? What do I expect to get out of this? And if I remind myself of that, I can choose to have that encounter, no matter what it is, be whatever I decide to be. And like I've said many times before, I learned at a young age when I started learning this stuff, that for me, if I can just remind myself that my ultimate goal is peace, that when I'm having an interaction with something and I question myself about it, do I want peace or not? Usually, if I'm having an encounter that I don't love, I haven't been wanting peace. I've been wanting to be right about something, been wanting to reinforce an old belief system. I've been wanting to prove what a victim I am, whatever it is. And I can say, wait a minute, I don't want any other goal here but peace. So I'm going to reorient my goal, and I'm going to now start allowing for the projection of that new thought form. And then just sit and watch the darn thing change before my eyes. They start talking differently. They stop yelling. the bank balance goes up. All kinds of stuff happens when I decide to change what I'm projecting and not approach any aspect of my life from the point of view of it happening to me, rather than asking myself, what am I projecting here? What am I contributing to this here? It's very, very powerful. You don't always get it right. Sometimes you get it wrong more than right. Sometimes you forget to do it. We are all under the spell of the ego to some degree or another, so we tend to stay asleep. But the more we remind ourselves in each encounter to ask, what am I projecting, rather than what is happening to me, we get huger glimpses of our power. And the more we get glimpses of our power, the more inclined we are to use our power. And the more we use our power, the less inclined we are to stop using our power, or abdicating from our power, or letting anybody take our power from us. So it's a very simple and challenging exercise. Whatever's going on in your life, taking responsibility for what you're projecting. What am I projecting? What do I want to have come from this? What is my goal? And when you change and you stop thinking that it's happening to you and you change what you're projecting, just watch things change in front of your eyes. Watch things work themselves out in ways that you didn't think were possible. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be. Boy, I went way too long. I'm sorry about that. Okay, questions. Ariel, what do you think about karma and dharma? What do you think we were bad in another lifetime and that's why we experienced trauma? I don't buy any of that. I don't buy any of that. I think everybody is here. I mean, karma in the third dimension is normal, cause and effect. And the only reason why karma, as you're talking about it, would be functional is to learn something. So if you touch a stove and it's hot, then you learn not to touch the stove when it's hot, so you don't injure yourself. And so if you don't remember your past lives, what are you learning by having that karma? So the only thing that karma means is cause and effect. And the only thing based on the lecture today that you want to ever learn is your power of projection. And if you can correct any misperceptions and any misprojections, then there's no karma, because you've learned the biggest lesson and everything rights itself, everything balances itself. I've heard you speak of pulling back into space a couple of times. Do you have a meditation centered around this? I'm not sure if I do or not. You know, I have almost 100 meditations. Can you believe that? And I can't keep track of them all, especially I just don't remember if I do. But that wouldn't be a bad idea. So I'll check through all my meditations, and if I don't have something like that, I will create it, because that's a very, very smart idea. All right, well, thank you so much for the great questions. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much to the amazing moderators, Minerva and I Am Her Eminence, and we will see everybody tomorrow for the Witch's Rosary. Until the next time, blessed be.